Let's get started. Today we got 4 problems, so it's actually a pretty quick lesson. The title is Radical Equations. All right, we got equal signs, which means it's an equation, and we got square root signs, which means it's a radical equation. I already wrote the first one up here on the board. If you want to follow along, get the idea, then pause the video and do the rest. I always say that's the best way to go. This guy is a little bit tricky and the terminology is a little bit different. So just, if you want, stick with me on this guy. But once you do this, these two should go pretty quick. Okay, in order for us to solve these equations, we do need to separate the stuff. And what I mean by that is we got to get all our numbers on one side and all our square root stuff on the other. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides because that's going to really clear the board, right? It's going to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Square root a plus 5 and 5. And before I keep going, just be careful. Make sure you notice, oh yeah, the square root sign only goes to the 5 and then it stops. And then I got more stuff. So now I have this. The way we get rid of the square root sign is we do the opposite of square rooting something, which I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but whatever. The way we get rid of that guy is we square, that's a 2, is we square that value. And then what we do to one side in order to balance the equation, you gotta do to the other. So the square root and the squared signs cancel each other out, and I end up with an a plus 5. Over on this side, 5 squared is 25. Now I'm just solving for a. So because it's a plus 5, I do the opposite, and a equals 20, and I'm done. So there wasn't too much to that. The main idea is that getting everything to getting all your numbers to one side and your square root thing on the other, then squaring it because that's going to cancel out the square root sign. Once you have this equation like this, you should be okay solving this part. Moving right along. Okay, this is the one that I wanted you to watch just because the wording is a little bit different. It says here to, what does it say? Solve each equation and then check your solutions. All right, it said that for a certain reason, and we'll figure that out right now. K minus 1. All right. So I got to do the same thing. I got my square root stuff all on one side. There's no extra like plus, minus, a bunch of things. So I'm good to go. So I'm going to square this and square that. These guys are going to cancel and I end up with k plus 1. This guy's a little bit different. I have k minus 1 squared, which is the same thing as k minus 1 times k minus 1. Now, depending on how good you are with these, I would say write it out and FOIL it. But some of you guys are just going to fly through this and do it in your head. K squared outside is going to be minus 1k. Inside is going to be minus 1k. Last is going to be plus 1. I got k plus 1 equals k squared minus 2k plus 1. In order to solve these, I got to move everything to one side. And I'm sure people are saying, because it happens in class, Josh, how do I know? Like, do I move all this to this side or this to this side? What do I do? And I always say, move everything to the side so that your k squared is not negative. Because the minute you have a negative k squared, things get a little bit wonky and you end up having to do an extra step. So if possible, move everything to the side that allows the k squared, the leading coefficient, to just stay as a positive value. So in order for me to move these guys, I'm just going to subtract, right? It's an equal sign. I can subtract 1 unit of k and I can subtract 1. So I end up with 0 equals k squared, negative 2k minus another k and minus a 1. And I end up with negative 3k. 1 minus 1 is 0. That looks kind of weird, but that's okay. Get it? K? No. Okay. Sorry. Come on, you guys. We got to do something with this, right? It's middle school math. This is something that, most people dread. So I got to at least do something to make this reasonably interesting. Now that I have this answer, can you plug stuff in or say, oh yeah, I can totally solve that in my head? No. Maybe you can. If you can, then you shouldn't be watching this lesson. In order for us to separate this guy out, I'm going to factor out a k from both parts. And I know you're going, yes, we're back to factoring. I love factoring. And then what's left? K minus 3. Now, what values can go here and here to get me an answer that would make it a 0, right? Two things are being multiplied. This is our zero product property. Again, all this stuff we're learning in chapter 8 and 10 is all coming together. You got to remember this stuff. So just follow along. Let's practice together, and then you'll do some on your own. What number could go here to, or value could go here to make this whole thing be equal to a 0? Well, just 0, right? Because 0 times anything is 0. And what could go here? What minus 3 could make a 0? 3. All right. Now, it did say check your solutions. And it did that because one of these solutions shows up mathematically, but it isn't actually a solution when we go back and check. Do you remember what that term is for these kinds of solutions? I'm hoping you got it because I said it a bunch of times in class. It's an extraneous solution. Okay, well, let's plug them both in and see which one is the extraneous solution. I'm going to plug in zeros and see what I get. So, all this stuff is gone at this point because, that's just my math. So you don't really need any of that. If you want to erase it, you can, or just kind of don't look at it. 0 plus 1 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. So does 1 equal negative 1? No. So that answer is out. Let's try 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. And then over here, I'm going to put a 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So does 2 equal 2? Yes. So therefore, this is our solution to the problem. And so on a test, on your notes, in your homework, that's what you would do. The answer is k equals 3. Write it down, circle it, move on to the next problem. All right. I know I'm going kind of quick, but just take your time with this. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. There's a lot of things that we're learning that we're now applying to all kinds of new problems. Let me erase all of this. And like I said before, if you want to get started on that next problem, I say go for it and try it. That's pretty much all there is when it comes to doing these. So I got t plus 5, or square root of t plus 5 equals t plus 3. This guy is separated, right? It looks good. There's no extra stuff like a plus 7 or minus 9 or anything else, so I'm good to go. So now I can square both sides to get rid of that square root sign. So I end up with t plus 5, right? The square root cancels with the squared. And now I got another t plus 3, t plus 3. Pause the video if you want. See what you get for that. If not, just keep on rolling. I'm going to get a t squared plus 6t plus 9. Now again, I got to move everything to that side, right? The t squared is on that side, so I'm going to move everything over to there. So I'm going to subtract 1t and subtract 5. And so we end up with 0 equals t squared. And then I have, where's my t's? I got minus 1t. So 6t's minus 1t is 5t's. And then 5, I subtract 5 from both sides, and I get a 4. All right. Now I got a trinomial here. Let me factor this guy and figure out what numbers would go in these two places. I know these are t's. My factor, or my number back here, is a 4. What makes a 4? I got 2 and 2, 4 and 1. That's it. They're both pluses, so I know that these are going to be pluses. And now I just need the two values that are going to combine to make a 5. Hopefully you see it by now. It's going to be the 4 and the 1. So it doesn't matter where I put them. I'm just going to plug them on in. So I now need to solve, right? I factored it. I got all my work done. Now I need to solve. What value goes here? What value goes here? Using the zero product property. This guy would be a negative 4. This guy would be a negative 1. Let's plug them in and see what we get, right? Now, like I said before, some of you guys just go so fast that you just kind of do these in your head. I recommend writing them down, plugging them in, see what you get. Don't just kind of eyeball it and go, oh, the answer is this one, and move on. Just double check, okay? You have time, do it. -4, -4. -4 plus 5 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. -4 plus 3 is -1. Does 1 equal -1? No. So that guy's out. Now, could I just say, well, dude, if that one doesn't work, it's got to be that one? Yes, but, you know, to make your teacher happy, I would say plug it in, show your work. -1. Let me put it right here. -1, -1. Okay, -1 plus 5 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. -1 plus 3 is 2. Is 2 equal to 2? Yes. So therefore, that is my answer. So if I wanted to circle it like that, honestly, I would take that on the test because this is some really good work you've done. But to make it a final answer, you could write it out as t equals oh, that's bad, -1, and circle your answer, make your teacher happy, and then move on to the next problem. Got one more here. Like I said, I wanted to do this guy just because that way you kind of see problems where you have the square root stuff on one side versus the other. It really is up to you, you know, how you want to tackle this, but I always just try to follow the same pattern because it always works for me. X minus 3 equals square root x minus 1, and you'll see what I mean. Square root these guys, right? I get x minus 3 times x minus 3. All right. I work through this guy. I get x squared minus what? 6x plus 9 and x minus 1. So my x squared is over here now. So I'm just going to move these guys over because, again, I want my leading coefficient, the x squared, I want it to be positive. So I'm going to subtract 1x and I'm going to add a 1 because that's going to cancel those guys out. So I have x squared, 1x, that's a 0, right? Negative 6x minus 1 more x is negative 7x. And I'm going to add 1 to both of these, and I'm going to get a 10. All right. Hopefully you're already looking at this going, dude, I got the numbers. I already know what it is. I'm so excited. And if you're not, that's okay. Watch me do it. Maybe pause the video and try it on your own. It's up to you. I got a minus and a, oh, I got to put a symbol in there. That's a plus. Okay, I got x's, I know that. I got a minus in the middle, plus in the back. What are my factors of 10? I got 10 and 1, 2 and 5, and that's it. Is there one set that I can combine to make a 7? Yes, the 2 and the 5. Because I have a minus in the middle and a plus in the back, I know this is minus minus. And now let me plug in my numbers. I got 2 and 5, okay? Using the zero product property, what goes here? What goes here? This one is a 2, this one is a 5. Let's check our answers and see what we got. Let's try the 2 first. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Does negative 1 equal 1? No, so that guy's out. Do we just assume the 5 is right? No, we try it. So let's plug in a 5. I got 5 minus 3, which is another 2. And I got a 5 minus 1, which is a 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Does 2 equal 2? Yes. So therefore, this is my answer. To make your teacher happy, rather than just circling that, you could write it out as x equals 5. And you are all set. Okay? So, as you notice, we're applying some new stuff, but it's a pattern, right? We're squaring both sides, we're foiling, factoring, moving stuff around using all the rules that you guys have now learned to solve these equations, all right? Until next time, I'll be seeing you. Good job on these problems. Try them, talk to me, send me a message, let me know how I can support your learning, all right?